Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel, Infinity Now, and appreciate you tuning in, of course, as always. Thank you, and subscribe if you haven't, or give it a thumbs up if you like it, or thumbs down if you don't like it, or leave comments, ideas, suggestions, as always. So I think it's great, much appreciated. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something different, because originally I dedicated my channel to things like understanding, an existential study, an ongoing, trying to understand what this is and where we come from, and exploration of, psychic abilities, the universe, all that sort of stuff, aliens, UFOs. But then I did open it up a little bit to, as well, I don't know, a few months ago, where I just kind of want to talk about whatever, and why not? So I think it's a good platform for that, and a good way to get a good outlet, I think, sometimes. But and I'm talking about, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the United States of America. The next Olympics, 2028, is going to be in Los Angeles. And it just got me thinking about our country. And I'm from there. I'm from here. I was born and raised in the United States, and I do love our country. I know it's not perfect. We've come a long way, but of course we're not perfect. But I think we should always seek to, like anywhere or anybody, we should always seek to have some sense of integrity and decorum when we represent ourselves, especially on the world stage. Anything less than that, it just it doesn't look good, and it could be a reflection of something that may be going on internally at a national level. But I think that sort of thing is important, especially if we are to represent a high value or moral standard. And now, as far as the Olympic Games itself, I did a lot of thought on the opening ceremony too, because I know there was a lot of controversy or whatever about that, so I want to do a video on that. I think I've nuanced it and broke it down pretty well, actually. I kind of want to discuss that too. I think it's interesting, the backlash that was caused by it. But right now, just kind of focusing on the representation of the United States in 2028. So Los Angeles. Now, this time around, so what they did, they pass the key and the torch, I think, or they have a ceremony to where they pass it on to the next host city. And Tom Cruise, is a big actor. He did his own stunt, and he was part of the closing ceremonies. And then passed the key of the city to some really famous musicians from Los Angeles. So Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre. So some big time rappers. Billie Eilish, who I'm not as familiar with, but I checked out a couple of her songs. I really like them, actually. So she's really talented, but I don't know too much about her. And the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is a worldwide famous rock and roll group from Los Angeles. And it got me thinking, the Olympics. The Olympics is where the world comes together, even in times of world war. Sometimes it's a time where the countries come together and represent themselves. And not only that, but represent a moment where we're able to, not completely sometimes, of course, if at all, but to put aside for the most part what's going on geopolitically and compete at a level that is free from that stuff. And just pit the best of our own athletes against one another in a fair and objective manner. So, and to do that, to represent our country, I think it's a big honor, and I think it's something that we need to do proudly and carefully and properly, and have as much dignity and decorum as possible. So, for example, I'm a big fan of Snoop Dogg, for example. I grew up right when he came out, so I had all his original tapes, believe it or not, cassette tapes. So, I love rap too. And I understand it pretty well from a lot of different angles, I would say. And I think, he's a big-time artist, coming from Los Angeles, and he's made a huge success out of himself. But passing the key to someone like him, it makes sense. There's an argument there for, the type of music that he puts out, but music is a big spectrum, and he's a huge success story. I think he's a good person overall. So I don't mind, him being part of the representation, or him or Dr. Dre. In other words, because a lot of their music glorifies gang culture and criminality. So you can make that argument, but I wouldn't agree with that. I think it represents his story and where he comes from. But when he was also picked to carry the Olympic torch as well. So, and while he was doing it, he did the Crip Walk dance, which is, specific to gang culture and gang life. That kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, if you're going to do that, don't glorify that certain lifestyle. There's a time and a place, and I think it just requires a little bit more class. So when he did that, I didn't agree with that. But it's kind of minor, but that's just my own opinion. What I really take issue with is, and this can kind of be rolled into the upcoming argument I'm about to make as well, but again, I look at it as more minor, is picking the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Not only that, but Anthony Kiedis, their main spokesman, or their lead singer rather, is an official spokesman for the city of LA for the 2028 Olympics. And they have their brand of music is, it's about drugs, and there's a lot of sexual content, and you can make the same argument that, the genre is not necessarily conducive to representing, say, the country. But still, I see music as a large spectrum of objective artistry, and overall may not necessarily agree completely, but wouldn't mind if they represented LA. But in this case, I do. So, and I don't know why this escapes people, or where we're at as a country, or if people that don't know this. But Anthony Kiedis, his whole life has been filled with drugs and sexual exploits. And in his own book, his own autobiography, Scar Tissue, he admitted he was 23 at the time to sleeping with a 14-year-old. Then he found out her age, and he slept with her again. He admitted to doing that after finding out her age. There was another girl in that book mentioned. She's a famous actress, born in England. Don't quote me on that one, but then she was raised in LA. And by her own admission, they started dating when she was 17. He said they met when she was 16, when they were 16. And he admits to over 100 sexual partners per year. So, this is very much a part of his mentality and lifestyle. For a long time, he's in his late 50s now. It's like 30 or 40 years going on, roughly, about 30 years. And the age of consent in California, where she grew up at the time, was 18. So whether, you go with her story, which says they dated when she was 17, or his, I believe, and he even confirms this in the book, or outside the book, that they met actually when she was 16, so he has an even lower number. Both of those numbers are under the age of consent. It's been 18 in California since the turn of the century, last century, 1913, if I recall correctly. So here's this man, and he admits to doing all sorts of drugs in the book. He even wrote a song about his encounter with this 14-year-old and put it on an album shortly after this occurred. So he's a self-admitted predator, and somebody who, and these are just two. If he admits to over 100 partners per year sometimes, and openly admitted to these two relationships, who's to say what else happened over the past 30 years? Okay, and what's curious is he hasn't denied it. And as recently as just a few years ago, he even said, well, my book, in the wake of the Me Too movement, originally he felt bad about releasing that book, but later he changed his mind because people actually benefited from reading it, like it helped them in some way in their life. And maybe it did, but he never apologized or admitted wrongdoing or said, no, that's a mistake, I didn't mean to write that, or I was high on drugs. No, he just basically stood on that truth and carried forward, and wasn't apologetic. Just said he felt bad about releasing the book, but changed his mind because it helped people. It doesn't matter if it helped people. It's documented evidence of past wrongdoings, and something that's never been addressed. He was never, and he's been prosecuted for other things such as, I think, indecent exposure and like sexual assault. You can look it up online. But this is something that just shouldn't be swept under the rug. It's like, why are we choosing this to be our spokesperson? It's like, and even taking it a step further, like, why are we choosing? There could be better examples to draw from, I would think, as well, than a self-admitted, I don't know if I could say certain words on YouTube or not, but predator, someone who preys on underage kids, or a self-professed gang member like Snoop Dogg, who still claims that he's in a gang and still puts out music, that glorifies criminality and violence and doing drugs and, misogyny, and has a negative take on women. This sort of music, I get it too, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but when you're in your 50s and you're still doing this and you're a worldwide star, it's like, I think you have a moral duty and responsibility to change the tune a little bit. Now, can you listen to this kind of music and still be responsible about it? Yeah, actually you can, because I do, and I love rap as a genre as a whole. But if we're going to pick somebody to kind of represent us, and again, it's a mixed feeling for me, like with Snoop Dogg, for example, and I don't mind him representing the city, but I do have some minor disagreement there. But we should be very careful. I mean, why not just clean it up across the board? Why not just get rid of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Snoop and maybe pick other artists, maybe different rappers from LA with a cleaner history? But definitely not a rock group whose main singer is a self-professed pedophile. It's like, how do you explain this to someone? Okay, so I was thinking about this, like, explain this to, like, maybe your kids. Say it's your kids. Or someone from another country or something, and you're like, hey, what's that? Where's this city? And who are these people representing it? Well, that guy there, he's in a gang. He's in his 50s, but he still talks about doing drugs and, killing rivals and treating women like objects, and glorifying that lifestyle. And they're like, oh, okay, this is the United States of America, huh? The greatest country on planet Earth. Well, okay, interesting. Well, who's this guy? Well, he's a self-professed drug addict and abuser, somebody who abused and basically raped underage women, and wrote about it in his book and admitted to it. Never apologized and never went to prison for it. They're like, wow, but they sold a lot of records, and they're from the city that we're representing. So if you have to explain it to someone like that, don't you think that we could do better as a country or even a society? Pick different people. Pick different groups. There's a lot of options out there, and there's a better way for us to represent ourselves while having some degree of moral clarity and standards that we adhere to. If we're going to host the Olympic Games, where the world comes to our city in Los Angeles to celebrate, and this is what we're doing to represent it, it's like, let's do better. Okay? It's like, these are easy arguments to make, and I really don't see a way around this. So I just wanted to share this, and I don't even know if people know this sort of thing, or maybe thought about it, or realized it like I have, but it's come to light to me recently while researching these individuals. Not Snoop, I've been a fan of his for years, but like I was saying, a little bit of more decorum would be appreciated. However, this Red Hot Chili Peppers is just unacceptable. Okay, and I'm curious if there's going to be a backlash or an uproar, because we got 4 years to prepare for this. And just what the hell? Seriously. It's like, and there's nothing you can do to explain that away. There's nothing you can do to justify that, to make that okay. And he never went to prison for it, and he was never prosecuted for it, and he never apologized for it. Anything less than calling it what it is, just like I laid out, you're being an apologist and you're excusing that behavior, and that is absolutely 100% not okay, and there is no argument that is rational or moral that you can give that would disprove that. Anything other than that, you're justifying his actions and the fact that what he did, he got away with. And if you say it's okay for him to represent this city or this country, Los Angeles, that city in our country, there's just, you support that sort of thing. You're okay with it. And there's no argument against that. And I just want to put that up there because it kind of pisses me off. And just the lack of awareness and the lack of, there's no justification. There's no parallel you can draw here that would make that okay. So, I don't know. I'm just curious what your thoughts are or how you feel about that. But that's, I feel pretty strongly about it. And I want our country to always put its best foot forward. And hopefully we can catch this before it gets too far, because this should not remain unchanged for the next 4 years. You know, we need to find better representation and be more careful about who we celebrate and choose as our representatives as the United States of America. So, anyways, thanks for hearing me out. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on that and get that out of my system and share that as well. So, thank you for watching, and take care.